Good evening and warm welcome to all the participants. Ladies and gentlemen, we are extremely delighted to see a lot of traffic today. And please join me in welcoming Miss Mamatha Madireddy. Good evening, ma'am, and welcome to this conversation.
Thank you, Sudhakar garu. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great. Thanks for agreeing to speak with us. And I will, without much ado, share a brief presentation. And after that, I'll request you to start the conversation. Allow me to share my screen, please. These are WiseViews leadership conversations, which we hold every Friday. And this is session number 195. And this session number 195 will be led by Ms. Mamatha Madireddy. She is the Managing Director and Head of HSBC Global Service Centers, India. And the topic is Global Capability Centers, the Evolution and the Next Frontier. This introduction and ma'am's talk will be for about 20-25 minutes put together. After that, we'll have good time for Q&A. My pleasure to introduce Ms. Mamatha Madireddy. She brings 28 years of experience across the banking and financial services industries. In her 23 years with HSBC, Ms. Mamatha has worked across diverse domains. Prior to joining HSBC, she was with the HDFC Bank. She's an inclusive leader. She sponsors several diversity initiatives at the GSCs and mentors many women. She also serves as the sustainability lead for HSBC Global Service Centers. She is the honorary vice chairperson of United Way of Hyderabad. She is the chair of the NASSCOM GCC Council and a member of NASSCOM Executive Council, all very senior and responsible positions. She was the first to lead ICFAI's Women Leaders Forum during 2021 and 22. She is a board director of India's first BFSI consortium and an executive council member of the Society for Cyber Security Council, where she leads the Women's Forum. She won many awards. Some of them are here. She won the CXO BFSI Women Achiever Award at the CXO BFSI Automation Summit and Awards 2021. Ms. Mamatha is also an acclaimed Indian classical dancer and has represented the country at various international festivals. Thank you so much, ma'am, once again for being with us this evening. And I will do a brief introduction of my esteemed colleague, Dr. Prasad, who is the Senior Director at the Academic Wing in ICFAI Group. He brings 3 decades of rich experience to the table as an entrepreneur, as a corporate professional, and now as an academic at ICFAI. He holds BTech from IIT Bombay and PGDM from IIM Kolkata. Most welcome, Dr. Prasad. Good evening and welcome to you too. I will now stop sharing the screen. We are all set to hear you, ma'am. This is a blockbuster topic, as Dr. Prasad was mentioning. And in a manner of speaking, we needed to keep some law and order in place because there's so much of traffic today. Over to you, ma'am. We are eagerly waiting to understand the story of GCCs. Thank you once again.
And thank you so much, Sudhakar garu, first of all, for having me here. Good evening, and I think a very warm welcome to all of you who've joined today. A very pertinent topic, I think a very hot topic, global capability centers. Why I also say it's pertinent and a hot topic is in the budget this year, the Honorable Finance Minister actually spoke about coming up with a national framework for GCCs for Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. The fact that GCCs got a mention in the budget itself shows how important and how prominent the GCCs have become and the role that GCCs are playing and will continue to play in contributing to Viksit Bharat. But there's a fundamental question first we need to ask ourselves is, what is a GCC? There are so many, there are myriad definitions of, what a GCC is. And based on the definition, the data, the statistics that get quoted related to the GCCs also tend to differ. So the definition of a GCC is very simple. It refers to a captive or it refers to an offshore center of a multinational company and that operate in India for many reasons. It could be for business operations, it could be for driving innovation, it could be for driving digital transformation. So that is a simple definition of a GCC. So we will start with a very powerful story today. This is a story of momentum, it's a story of scale, and it's a story of global strategic alignment. So the growth of GCCs in the last 5-6 years has been phenomenal. And the data that you see on the slide actually speaks for itself. Today, there are about more than 1,700 distinct GCCs in the country, and there are about 3,000 individual units in the country. When I say individual units, as an example, if you take HSBC, where I come from, we are a GCC, but I've got 6 different GCC locations in the country. And they basically have got that many units. So that's how the 3,000 number kind of comes up in terms of being individual units. And these GCCs have been growing at a compounded annual growth rate of 4.6% since 2019. The staggering number is that 1.9 million professionals that are employed in the GCC industry today. And this growth in the number of people who are being employed in the GCC space is growing at about 6.3% compounded annual growth rate over the last 5 years. Today, it is a $64.6 billion industry. And what is also heartening to see is about 36.4 billion is actually coming from engineering, R&D, and a lot of complex and high-end value work that the GCCs are providing to their enterprise. The revenue itself is growing at about 9.8% compounded annual growth rate. So one thing is very, very clear. Today, the GCCs are not just these, oh, it's an offshore center that I have in India, but they are truly becoming and have become innovation engines, strategic growth hubs for the parent enterprise. So what we are seeing is not just expansion. I think what we are seeing as a country is India's evolution into the world's preferred capability destination. So let's look at where this phenomenal, numbers are coming from. And what this slide also talks about is how diverse and globally distributed the Indian GCC landscape has become today. And GCCs typically are largely started off with, with the Americas. So over the last 5 years, again, we've seen about a 27% increase in the number of GCCs from the Americas. I mean, we have got companies like PepsiCo, Airbnb, Micron, right, who've not just set up their capability centers, but they are significantly deepening their footprint in the country. EMEA region saw 41% growth in the same period. Again, we are seeing big players like Hitachi, Sandoz, coming into the country. But where we've actually seen the largest growth in the last 5 years has actually been in APAC, where we actually saw 65% increase in the number of GCCs. The numbers grew from 85 to about 140 plus in this space. And we are looking at companies like, Toyota, NAB, MUFG, right, who are entering the Indian ecosystem, and a lot of interest as a GCC that we are seeing from countries like Japan and Australia. So what is this telling us? One is in the diversity of the regions that the country is supporting, basically becoming a truly global GCC hub. So we are today supporting multi-region enterprises. What we are also very interestingly seeing is a diversification in the sectors. GCCs historically have been very heavy, BFSI, banking, financial services, and insurance, again, where I come from. But today, pharma is a big sector, right? We are seeing entertainment. Warner Brothers has a GCC in Hyderabad. We are seeing life sciences. We are seeing automotive, right? So there is also the diversity in the sectors that we are seeing as far as the GCCs are concerned. I mean, there's a McDonald's having a GCC in Hyderabad. It opened about 6 to 7, months back. Have we ever thought about when the GCC landscape started about 30 years back that somebody sitting here in India would be designing a marketing campaign, right, for a PepsiCo or McDonald's? So that is where the trajectory of growth of the GCCs has happened. But where is this industry poised to go? I think that's a very fundamental question we'll have to ask ourselves. Is great, we are 64.6 billion today. We are employing 1.9 million people. But what are the projections by 2030? So according to a NASSCOM Zinnov report, we will undergo a massive leap, both in terms of size, scale, and the strategic relevance. So the $64.6 billion industry today is expected to cross 100 billion by 2030. We are talking about a nearly 50% increase in the value or the revenue of the GCC industry. 1,700 plus GCCs today, expected to be anywhere between 2,100 to 2,200 by 2030. And the GCC units that we are talking about, again, 3,000 plus today, that's expected to cross 4,300 by 2030. So this is not just numbers that we are talking about. Yes, numbers are important, how many GCCs, how many GCC units, but what we are talking about is a pure scaling of strategic capability across regions and across different sectors. Finally, headcount that all of us are interested in. The 1.9 million 1.9 million workforce that's employed in the industry today is expected to touch between 2.5 and 2.8 million by 2030. But this is just not about numbers like I mentioned, right? We're also seeing a big shift happening towards high-end capabilities like engineering, analytics, AI, but we are also seeing a lot of leadership roles as well being shifted to India. So what does this mean for us as India's global capability centers? What it means for us, this is not just where work gets done, but this is where global priorities of organizations are getting delivered. And this is where enterprise innovation is being born. So what we're talking about in the industry is that the GCC ecosystem is not just plateauing, right? It's actually accelerating. So let's understand what are the 6 themes, and I'll kind of quickly walk through this. India is called the GCC capital of the world. 17% of the world's global capability centers are actually in India. And that is also because of we have the largest STEM talent pool globally. We account for about 28% of the world's STEM workforce and 23% of the world's software engineering talent, right? And hence we are called the GCC capital of the world. And maturity roadmap. The second driver is a maturity roadmap. Over the last decade, I think we've seen the maturity kind of grow significantly. We are looking at governance, compliance, cyber readiness, operational capability. All the capability that's there in the GCCs today are at par, if not better, than what we have in our global enterprises. And we are seeing a focus in shifting kind of the value gap, or rather bridging the value gap that we are seeing and scaling leadership accountability in India. There are 2 countries, India and China, if we have to rank them on maturity. These are the 2 countries in the GCC space that rank high on maturity. But the advantage that we have in India is we have a far more affordable, we have a scalable English-speaking workforce, and with an open innovation ecosystem. And that is the advantage that we have, whilst India and China, like I said, in terms of the maturity, are quite high compared to the other markets. Third theme that is driving the growth is high-end engineering and emerging tech roles. And I spoke about ER&D being a $34.6 million contribution to the GCC space. And that is again the trajectory that we are seeing in terms of high-end engineering and emerging tech roles. What we are also seeing is a big change in the equation, which is the 4th pillar that I want to talk about, is the symbiotic relationship with service providers. Historically, it has always been perceived that the GCCs and service providers are in competition for the same business. Today, it is acknowledged, it is accepted that the GCCs and service providers are not competing with each other, but they are collaborating. We are talking about both of these being in a symbiotic relationship, and the objective being work together, collaborate to drive faster delivery, ecosystem integration, and basically co-creating models for transformation. And that is again a big driver of what we are seeing in terms of the GCC growth that's happening in the country. The big one that I want to talk about really is the expansion of global roles, decision-making roles, roles that have got empowerment that are being set up in the GCCs. Today, there are about 6,500 global roles that are there in the GCCs. This number is expected to cross 30,000 by 2030. So in 5 years, what is 6,500 today is expected to grow to 30,000. That's a phenomenal shift that we are talking about. Global roles moving from enterprise organizations into the global capability centers. But one more important point for me personally, very encouraging, is the rise of women in this global leadership roles. I think 2019, around that time, the number is about 300 plus. Today, the number we are talking about is 1,100 plus, and by 2030, that number is expected to reach 7,500. So that's another area to watch out for, is kind of the diversity element that we talk about in global leadership roles in GCCs. And no conversation today ends having not talking about AI and Gen AI. I think where we are seeing the growth or the sixth lever driving the GCC transformation is actually the talent that we have for AI and machine learning. Especially we are seeing this at the middle management level, right? GCCs today are actually establishing AI centers of excellence. They are embedding intelligence into core operations, or it could be decision making. The extensive use of AI and Gen AI is what we've started to see happening in the GCCs. Again, as per the NASSCOM Zinov report, there are 500 GCCs in India who've already embedded AI capabilities into their operations. And in the GCCs, there are about 120,000 AI and ML professionals that are there. So there's a lot of focus in the organizations as well to really see how can these capabilities help in kind of transforming the services that they provide at pace and be able to move into more complex and more decision making and more kind of high-end work. So these are the 6 themes which explain why India is just no longer a cost arbitrage, or it's cheaper to do work in India, but how India GCCs are core and central to the global value chain of the organizations. So I want to quickly spend some time around the maturity of the ecosystem, and I'm conscious of time as well. The industry went through 4 stages of maturity. Wave 1 was when, like I said, it was all about cost. India is cheaper to do work, so let's send more work into India. That is where most of the organizations which started 25, 30 years back started being the pure low-cost service delivery centers, as we used to call it. Then wave 2, basically the GCC started to become a center of delivery excellence. And we moved away from being pure play support functions to kind of more integrated delivery roles. Wave 3, I think this is where I would largely say we are today, between wave 3 and kind of wave 4. But this for me is really a defining, moment. It is where we've evolved to own portfolios. We've evolved to drive digital transformation. And we're also seeing a lot of GCCs leading expansion into tier 2 and tier 3 cities as well. And this phase, we've also seen the rise of global roles. Like I mentioned, we are seeing increasing adoption of AI. We are seeing new talent, paradigms coming up. And we're seeing a shift that is moving towards more global business structures. Wave 4 and beyond is where the GCCs are true transformation hubs. And I'm seeing some new GCCs who are actually entering this wave 4.0. So all the GCCs that are coming today are not going through the whole maturity curve that some of the older GCCs have seen. They're actually coming anywhere between wave 3.0 or wave 4.0 and really driving innovation, really driving the transformation agenda, really driving re-engineering kind of capabilities for the organizations. So it is, I think the key message that if I were to kind of take away from this is, it is just not about offshoring work. The GCCs in India today are all about shaping global futures. So what is the next frontier for, for the GCCs? I think we are talking about deepening, domain expertise. We are talking about becoming centers of innovation and digital transformation. We are talking about driving inclusive and sustainable growth. I think this is an important one to talk about, because sustainability is not like okay, it's good to have, or like a side goal for the GCCs anymore. It is a shared responsibility with the enterprise, and GCCs are actually taking the lead in some of the key aspects that the parent enterprise wants to drive from a sustainability standpoint. And how do we strengthen leadership pipeline? If we are talking about decision making being in the GCCs, if we are talking about global roles being in the GCCs, how do we develop, that talent within the GCCs? So this brings us to that $1,000,000 question, right? Talent. We talk about India and talent. For me, the question that we are asking ourselves in the GCC space is, do we have the relevant talent, right? Is the talent that's coming out of the universities and colleges relevant for the now and relevant for tomorrow? So it is about, Gayatri, if we can move to the next slide, it is about how talent is an absolutely strategic lever for us in the GCCs, right? So it's not just about hiring. Like I mentioned, it is about shaping skills for tomorrow. So GCCs are investing a lot in internal capabilities. We're seeing significant uptake. We're seeing partnerships happening with a lot of universities to ensure how, we are continuously reskilling and upskilling in this space. It is also important for us to create agile, cross-functional and digital first, mindsets and capabilities within the GCCs, because agility is no longer good to have. Agility has become an absolutely necessity to have, because in the GCC space, what we are seeing is roles are not just static capabilities anymore. So roles are fluid. So we have to be agile, we have to be flexible, we have to be adaptable to build the talent for the future. And we are also seeing a big cultural shift that is actually focusing a lot on aspects like collaboration and aspects like speed and learning and leadership development for a global context. Again, I spoke about the numbers, but how do we really build leaders who understand global business, who are able to lead diverse teams? When I say diverse teams, diversity across genders, diversity across generations, diversity across cultures. And that's the leadership capability we need to build in the GCCs, plus who are able to drive transformation. So how are a lot of GCCs are focusing on curating programs, right, that can cultivate adaptive, inclusive, and strategic thinkers. So it's a big area for us as a GCC space to really look at how do we develop that leadership kind of competency. Each individual GCCs work on it, but it's a very wide industry topic as well, is to, if we have to really put India at the forefront of the GCC leadership capability, what is it that we need to really invest in our talent today? And diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is an absolute must in most of the organizations, and it is looked at as a growth driver and not necessarily as a compliance, agenda. So how do we really create, those diverse teams that can understand what the customer requirements are, and how do we create a team that can thrive in a culture which is diverse? So right from how do we include inclusivity in our hiring, in skilling, in leadership access, in workplace culture, I think is big on the agenda for the GCCs. The other big important factor that the GCCs are driving, and we've had a conversation with Sudhakar Garu as well, is how do we collaborate with the academia? How do we co-create the right talent ecosystem in the country? So I think this is where we are going to see a lot of action, a lot of momentum happening, because the interest in the entire GCC industry is paramount. right? With the conversations on how do we partner with universities, how do we create the right curriculum, how do we co-create curriculum, and how can we develop talent right from the universities and colleges who, when they pass out, are like ready talent available for the GCC organizations to kind of hire from. So this is a space that a lot of action is happening. In fact, we had an ASCOM GCC conclave in April, and this is one of the big themes that have emerged to say, how do we really work with academia? How do we really work with the ecosystem to help build the right talent, not just for the now, kind of for, for the future. So that's, I think, broadly, this slide talks about how can we kind of co-create and collaborate with academia. How do we create pathways for, continuous learning is what we are looking at. So in short, we have to reimagine the future of GCCs. The numbers are phenomenal. The numbers talk for themselves. But I largely talk about 3 Rs, from the perspective of how do we reimagine the future of GCCs. One is continuing to be relevant. And how do we continue to be relevant? We continue to be relevant through reinvention. So being relevant is not an option anymore. So how can the GCCs constantly reinvent themselves? It is not about what we do, but it is about how we do it. How can the GCCs embrace new technology? How can they embrace Gen AI? How can they embrace agentic AI? Right? How do we drive ESG initiatives? So these are the factors that the GCCs have really started to kind of look at. How do we build resilience through collaboration? This is again a change that we're seeing in how the entire GCC industry is working, because there is no way we can afford to work in silos today. And the resilience will truly come from connected ecosystems. So how do we collaborate, connect, let's say, with startups, with even competitors, right? Academia and various kind of industry bodies. And how do we ensure we kind of create that resilience in the GCC space? Third, for me, is how do we really drive that responsibility through inclusive leadership? Because we just won't be judged by what great technology we've built, right? But the role that we play in the communities, the collaboration we have the communities, and the culture that we create. So inclusive leadership, I think, if to summarize everything, is the core, is central, along with technology, for us to really reimagine where do we want to take the GCC industry to. So that is what largely I'm hoping I've covered, what we are thinking about in the GCC space. Some statistics I wanted to highlight as well in terms of where we are as an industry, where are we kind of positioned to go. But happy to take any questions if they are.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Gayatri, for sharing the slides. Thank you, ma'am. It's a wonderful lowdown on the GCC, the emerging canvas, how big it is just understood now in terms of its various stages and in terms of how it has moved from the cost arbitrage to innovation, digital transformation, and strategic partnerships that we are forging. India is no longer a country that they looked at as a cost option, as an outpost for low cost sourcing of people. But now the best of the things are going to happen in India, and it's already happening. And it's a very, very good indicator for us that we'll stand a great chance in terms of developing talent, in terms of hoping for roles that are going to be very strategic, and we will leave our imprint on the things that shape the future of the world, right, sitting here in our country. So thank you so much, ma'am. You have taken a lot of care to make that presentation. A lot of detail is packed into those 10 slides, and it has clarified a lot of definitions on in terms of redefining what GCC itself is. But we still have lots of questions, and we look forward to having those questions from all our members in the audience. A word about acknowledging the fact that a large number of people have joined today. I see people from all walks of life, leaders in academia, not just from ICFAI, even from outside. From within ICFAI, we have leaders joining from Dehradun to Mumbai to Jharkhand to Hyderabad. We have our own distinguished Professor Madireddy joining, Dr. T.R.K. Rao joining, and many other stalwarts joining. Apart from that, I can see leaders from other institutes also have joined. Most welcome to all of them, and those youngsters who are aspiring students, middle level managers working in various domains, including media, they have joined here. People from BFSI have joined. Thank you all. A hearty welcome to all of you, and we'll have a fantastic Q&A with Mamatha Garu. Now I request Dr. Prasad to commence the cluster number 1. I'll come back for cluster number 2. Over to you, Professor Prasad.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Thank you, ma'am, for introducing such a wonderful topic and giving us a very wide landscape to discuss on. So I'll start with, a question which has a personal angle also. Now, you have moved across all the 4 waves in some fashion, though you said 3rd to 4th wave. You also looked at the 3 Rs. And before HSBC, you have traveled another journey. So if you look at your life and work learnings from your career, and also add the element of being a woman, because there will be there are other responsibilities, and you're also spearheading one of those interest areas. What kind of insights would you like to share?
From a personal angle, Dr. Prasad?
Yes, also for people who are looking at the space, because there needs to be a lot of agility and adaptability, lots of personal characteristics in order to take this and move to a leadership position.
Yeah.
And you have demonstrated that. So what kind of things would you like to share on that?
Yeah. So I'll probably spend like a couple of minutes on my career and background. Largely, most of my career actually has been with HSBC. Before that, I was with HDFC Bank, so it's been largely a financial services career that I've had. I joined the organization as an assistant manager way back in September 2001 from HDFC Bank. And when I joined, I was managing a team of 25. So my career has been a story of taking calculated risks. Right, it was about moving from mortgages, which was the first team that I joined, to moving into setting up, credit operations, which is large domain as operations. But from there, I moved into a more kind of a business management, COO kind of a function, then moved into kind of leading a team globally, and then, of course, now kind of leading India's HSBC's global capability centers in India. So I have taken a lot of calculated risks. I moved into domains that I had no idea about, right? But I knew that, I have to roll up my sleeves literally and start from the scratch to be able to understand that domain. There have been times when I was like, why am I even taking this risk? The self-doubt and all that would come into play. But for me, it was all about learning. Right? It was all about learning, and the role that I got into taught me something that was a transferable skill that I could take into something else. The second bit about my career, Dr. Prasad, is growth is not always vertical. Right? There is always this notion when you talk growth, everybody thinks it's promotions. My growth has always been zigzag, and I'm a very strong, believer of that. That you can move laterally, you pick up new skills, you pick up new capabilities that will help you to do your next role. Third, I'm a very strong believer of it's okay to make mistakes. I keep telling my team as well, we should celebrate intelligent mistakes. We made a mistake because we have tried. The fact that if you have not tried is the biggest mistake that can happen. All right, so it's okay to make a mistake, celebrate those intelligent mistakes, and move on from there, taking kind of the learning from there. I have an 18-year-old son now who's just finished his grade 12, exams. And I think balancing professional and personal is a challenge, right? I will not sugarcoat it and say it is easy. It is a challenge, but for me, it is all about how am I prioritizing. The other mantra that, again, I strongly believe in is not just prioritization. I use this phrase called ruthless prioritization. We have to be ruthless about how we prioritize things, right? Sometimes work takes priority, sometimes family takes priority, but how do you kind of really balance it out? And it's a planning that one needs to do kind of every day. Planning is one element, communication and transparency is another element, right? How are you managing expectations everywhere, right? Both at home and at kind of office. I'll give you a simple example. My son finished my his grade 12 exams on 21st of May. During that period of a month where he had exams, I largely worked from home because I know it's important for me to kind of, be there at home at this critical kind of juncture of his life. So it's just that ability to be able to balance comes with ruthless, prioritization. And how do you build an ecosystem around you that is supporting you? It's very important. I spoke about GCCs shouldn't operate in silos. That is absolutely applicable for me as an individual as well. Is how are you creating that ecosystem that is rallying around you, that is supporting you to be able to deliver what you want to do? Having said that, I am also part of somebody else's ecosystem as well, right? Helping that individual to be able to deliver what, he or she wants to do. So we talk about in organizations about networking, right? About relationships. I mean, that is all pervasive. It is not just limited to, kind of organizational behaviors. It is also about how we kind of demonstrate that outside as well personally. And the thing that I also strongly believe in is investing in the team, right? You need to hire the right people. You need to invest in people. You have to groom, you have to develop them so they become a very strong part of your ecosystem. But the investment is needed. It just doesn't come easy, right? You'll have to invest, you have to groom, you have to guide, you have to steer your teams. So it's just all part and parcel of that ecosystem that, that I'm talking about. So 3 or 4 very simple things, Dr. Prasad, that, like I said, that I kind of, believe in. But I keep telling my team as well, right? It is about the prioritization. It is about that ruthless prioritization and holding yourself accountable to what you need to, deliver.
Excellent, ma'am. I think there are a lot of inputs for both from a student side or those who are from the academia side trying to foster this sort of mindset. I think the mindset is what is dominating here about how you went about doing it. The algorithms about what to do, what skills to learn, they'll all come as it goes along. Just a supplementary to this, ma'am, going through all this, how did you keep yourself motivated? I mean, what do you have to suggest to others here?
I think there's many things that for each of us, it's different, right? How it kind of keeps me motivated. I think I'm giving a lot of mantras today, Dr. Prasad, but for me, what I believe in is, am I a better person today than what I was yesterday? Right, in terms of the quality of work, what value am I adding to the organization? And I'm always, it's almost like I keep telling my boss, I want to do part of your job. Let me do what you are doing. Let me take some responsibility of yours, because that's a learning for me as well. And I do the same with my team. I tell my team, you have to take part of my responsibilities because that's your development. So it is all about how you are setting your own benchmark, how you are ambitious, right? And what is it that you want to do and what your focus is. I think for me, that is really kind of the motivation is, am I better today? Am I learning something today? Am I adding value to the organization? Right? And the role that I do today, Dr. Prasad and Sudhakar Garu kindly mentioned that in my introduction, is I'm also in a position, I'm privileged and humbled to be able to play a part in the community as well. Right, either via NASCOM or via SCSC or the BFSI consortium. I see that as an absolute privilege to be in a position where I'm able to contribute to the community, indirectly contributing to the economy of the country, right? If you really start to draw the dots, it is all about eventually landing at, am I contributing to kind of Viksit Bharat, right? I think for me, that is really the motivation. Culture for me is very important, right? Most of our waking hours when we talk about it is with people at work. How do we create that right culture of work, right? How do we create that culture where people are able to speak up? Speak up should not be perceived as, insubordination. I mean, the challenges that I get from my team, they make me a better person by challenging me, right? So creating that right culture, a growth mindset, a culture of, speak up, a culture of inclusivity. Again, this doesn't happen overnight. This is all the kind of core elements that we need to start to build. And it's not just an organization. It is even at home, right? It could be in colleges, it could be in universities, everywhere. I think that it's very important to be really anchor back into that culture that you want to develop in the organization or you want to be part of. Culture just doesn't come from leadership. Culture is each and every individual has a role to play in it, right? So it is that I think is very, very, important and crucial for me, that we enjoy what we are doing, right? And if you don't enjoy, then that's probably not the right place for us to, be in. There'll be something else that you will choose that you will, enjoy.
Fantastic, ma'am. I think you've given a very, comprehensive set of, call it mantras or principles, which leaders need to utilize, whether they are students or whether they are leaders in institutions, because a lot of people here are in academia. I mean, documenting decisions is not enough. People need to know how to implement it. And when you implement it, you have to cross these waves if you really want to excel as you go along, and what all you need to bring to the table. I think there's quite a bit to learn here for all those who are attending this session. I'll take another question and then I'll hand it over to Professor Rao. We have a lot of questions. So this one, ma'am, again is for the audience. Now, those who want to get recruited in GCCs need to have an innovator's mindset. And obviously they'll start off well if they think in a fashion that you're described in the response to your first question. So if you need to look at the challenges that GCCs currently face in different waves, because we don't know which one a person will get into, in the different waves, and therefore what stakeholders or outside need to think of before they become part of this, what kind of challenges would you list?
Challenges for the students, is it, Dr. Prasad?
Students or leaders in academia who want to work with GCCs.
Leaders from academia who want to work
with GCCs, but would like to understand GCC's challenges, because that is what serves as a base for them to think.
Yeah. See, I think the challenges for GCCs today, the 2 or 3 that I'll kind of list as the top, right? The first is the ever-changing technology, right? And that change in technology has got like a cascading effect on many things. The first thing that we are seeing an impact is on the roles. When I say the roles, the job skills, the job capabilities are changing because of the way technology is changing, right? Gen AI is a simple, example. There's so many use cases that organizations are working on where today, if somebody is doing, I don't know, just say a transaction monitoring piece of work, tomorrow the Gen AI capability will be able to do the analysis for you and give you kind of a predictive output on transaction monitoring. What does this mean for the person who's doing transaction monitoring today, right? It goes into more judgmental. They'll need the ability to be able to understand, what output is kind of coming from technology. So we are starting to see those shifts in skills and capabilities. So the challenge for us as GCCs is, how do we do BAU, but how do we also ensure that we are developing the talent that we will need for kind of the future? How much is technology going to change, roles and skills? By what extent is still something kind of we are grappling with. So it is almost like the way I visualize this, right? It's like a Formula One race happening. There is no pit stop. You still have to go at 200 miles, but you have to change the tires as you're going at 200 miles. So I think that's a big piece for us in terms of talent, because the advantage that India has, like I mentioned, Dr. Prasad, is our talent, is high quality talent, and the ability for us to be able to scale, which no other country in the world today has. So how do we continue to keep that competitive advantage of having the relevant talent? I think that for me is really kind of the important thing the GCCs are grappling with. Second, and I will not shy away from saying it, is a geopolitical situation, right? As GCCs, that's one of the things that kind of we are looking at. It could be the current India-Pakistan situation, or it could be Russia-Ukraine, or it could just be the tariffs, etc., that kind of Trump is talking about. And I spoke about resilience, right? The second R that I spoke about was resilience. So it's all about how do we continue to maintain that, the resilience as a GCC ecosystem. What could be the unknowns, right? So when COVID hit us 5 years back, I mean, for India, it was like we didn't react, we responded, so beautifully to kind of COVID, and how the entire service industry stood up, no issues to delivery, etc. And I think that really raised the profile of India significantly as a country of very high, resilience. That was the unknown. We don't know what unknowns could be there, right? Impact on supply chain operations, impact on any like tariffs. I kind of just mentioned very briefly. I think that's the second element that as GCCs, I would say kind of, the challenge is. Third, I mentioned this again, and it is linked back to talent, is really those global leadership roles, right? In all our organizations, we are talking about this is where the work happens, the decision-making has to be here. So are we ready to be able to have those leadership roles, right, that are able to take decisions, empowerment, impacting P&Ls directly, owning P&Ls end-to-end, owning product development, owning product propositions. I think that's because India is always perceived to be as we're very good at doing. And how do we shift that mindset to say India is very good at doing, but India is even better at leading, right? So that is, I think, the third one that we are kind of, as an industry, is something we are looking forward to, really. So how do we kind of, develop that talent? And I mentioned this, I think, let's not think. I know absolutely that we have to work with the ecosystem on this. We have to partner with, with academias, with other kind of industry bodies as well to really make a collective impact. Because what we are seeing today is a lot of organizations on their own are doing a lot of work with academias. Opportunity for us is really to bring this as a more holistic approach that can make a 5x impact rather than each organization working kind of in their verticalized manner, with universities and colleges.
Fabulous, ma'am. Fabulous. I think you have given it at a level on which institutions need to think. And there are implications because of the ever-changing technology, impact on roles, the resilience because of the changing geopolitical landscape, and the moving from doing to leading and owning. And all these three have impact on implications for faculty, leadership, and students. And we need to do things in a way which are very different if you want to be part of this dynamism. I mean, as a part of an ecosystem, some of the dynamism will need to rub off. Of course, students are dynamic, except that when they come to a college, they may think it is in a different way. But by inherently, they are dynamic. So the academia ecosystem will also need to become extremely dynamic. Thank you, ma'am. I'll hand it to Professor Rao.
Thank you, Professor Prasad. Ma'am, it's a great conversation that's going on. What I will do is I will interrupt with 2 questions only, and I'll leave the rest to the audience to raise their hand and ask you questions directly. Let's see how many do that. But before that, my question is very simple. That is, it's about the academia, because large number of people who are here today in the audience are from academia. What do you think are the biggest gaps that you see between what these academia is producing and what the GCCs need? Maybe 1 or 2 that you can talk about.
And we've spoken about this, Sudhakar Garu, before. And I'll talk specifically of the industry that I come from, right? Banking, financial services, and insurance. I think there is what we see when we hire, what we see when we put people through training, and time to production is kind of a key metric for us. We collectively as an industry thought about how do we reduce that? Because today we spend like 8 months, 10 months before somebody who joined us actually becomes, productive. But so when you kind of draw back and see why is it that we have to spend such a long time for us to get a truly productive resource, it comes back to what is actually taught today to our, students. And there is a gap, right? Today in a BFSI space, I need to understand, let's say, payments. I need to understand securities, right? From a technology standpoint, what is it? From a behavioral standpoint, what is it that that we need? So there was this gap that we saw between what the industry needed and what talent we are getting from the universities and colleges. So we've actually set up what is called as a BFSI consortium. The consortium is working with universities and colleges and actually changing the curriculum. And this is an industry-designed, industry-led, and industry-implemented curriculum, which is getting integrated into some of the colleges and universities. And this is on 3 aspects. One is domain, One is technology related to domain, and the third is behavioral. That is also a behavioral element when you walk into organizations, things like that I spoke about, speak up, to collaboration, to being a team player, being, questioning the status quo, kind of thinking out of the box. I think those are behaviors that we expect, somebody who kind of joins a GCC. So I think that's where the gap is from a BFSI standpoint. But what is very heartening is a lot of work that's already happened in this space. We obviously have to scale this up, to other universities and colleges. But the objective is really this. How do we ensure that all the students who are coming out of universities and colleges are far more relevant to the needs of the industry today? And how, like I said, the time to production can get, almost minimal to what, it is today. We started off with BFSI. I know pharma industry is as well very keen to do it because this model can be easily replicated. So replication is one and scaling is one. And so the model is so simple. And what we are also seeing, Sudhakar Garu, is a lot of appetite, engagement from the academia and the universities as well. Right? Saying, yes, we want to work with you. Yes, we want to partner with you. And, how do we collectively ensure that the talent that's produced is so relevant for the industry that we are talking about?
Amazing. I was trying to understand what are the gaps, but you have actually gone ahead and talked about the solution that you have produced with respect to the gaps that you have already seen, and the example of BFSI consortium coming forward with the industry design curriculum. I hope industry design curriculum will happen with other sectors also, including pharma and other tech areas, and so that the educational institutions can actually buy that. When I say buy, not commercially, but buy into the concept of industry design curricula and make them industry ready. And then the recruitment, the talent absorption will be seamless. These gaps and the noises that we are seeing today in terms of whether your students are industry ready, even after they are recruited, the existing gaps in training them, all that will be probably put to an end with respect to introducing this industry design curricula, and that's most welcome. I think we are extremely happy that the trait of a leader is to not just talk about the gaps, but give the solution, and that's what you're given. Thank you so much, ma'am. I'll now move to the second question that I have before I open the mic to Professor Madireddy. The other question is that in terms of mindset, you have given a lot of parameters about how you went about it in your own personal journey, professional journey. At the same time, what kind of ecosystem you're developing among your team. But that is at one level. At another level, from a large number of people who are watching you right now, what kind of talent mindset do you look for, especially in leadership roles when hiring is for transformation focused GCCs? I think that's going to be the next wave. So therefore, what kind of talent mind that we should prepare the youngsters, not just in the colleges, but those who are already in the industry to prepare for that kind of leadership roles?
Yeah. And 3 or 4 things, Sudhakar Garu, when we talk about leadership and leadership in a world which is volatile, as we say. First, I would actually call out is resilience. Very important as a leader because of the environment that we are operating in, right? And the resilience to be able to not react. Reaction is easy. Any situation that happens, we react, but it is all about responding, because response is thought through, response is measured, right? Response considers all implications of reacting. And hence I talk about, so resilience is definitely a big one, and an open mind. When I say an open mind, because when you're talking transformation somewhere also has a slight negative connotation. Because they say, oh, we do transformation, then we might lose jobs, right? The roles might change. So how does the leader ensure that the messaging, the narrative on transformation is actually powerful? And being able to drive that mindset within the teams, to be able to challenge status quo, to be able to question, what we do. I spoke about culture. It's a big thing as a leader. It is also about that, that culture that you create in the team camaraderie that we, talk about, the calmness that we talk about. I mean, I'm a big fan of cricket. For me, leadership is all about MS Dhoni, and leadership is all about Rohit Sharma, right? It's just, and for each of them, I've kind of, learned a lot in terms of how kind of leadership, should be. So I spoke about resilience. I spoke about navigating. That's the important thing, right? How do you navigate to the change that is happening, and how you are able to take your teams along, on that change. Stakeholder management, ability to be able to tell the narrative moving away from doing to actually talking about the impact and the value that you're creating is very important as a leader. It is an art here is because it's storytelling. Storytelling is a very critical aspect of leadership that we are talking about today. Because like I mentioned before, we could be extremely good at doing, but if we are not able to tell the story, the value, the impact, that you or your team have delivered to the organization, then we will continue to slip into the doing phase.
Amazing, amazing bullet points that you have given us in terms of the leadership mindset or the talent mindset for leadership roles in the emerging transformation focused GCCs. So no amount of jargon would actually help in front of what you have spoken, in front of the examples that you have given for resilience, for actually storytelling and convincing your team, preparing them for stakeholder management, so on and so forth. But I think above all, what will stay in our mind and in the minds of all our people who are watching you right now is the lessons that we are going to pick up from cricketing heroes as well. The calmness of the mind that is displayed by MS Dhoni and the leadership of Rohit Sharma, so on and so forth. I think this is fantastic, and this will help us gauge what are the things that we are going to handle in future. A related question I would ask you, ma'am, that is, what kind of roadmap would you suggest for someone who's aspiring for a good role in GCCs, but the person is right now in the first year MBA or the second year MBA, more or less fresher? What kind of aspirations, realistic ones, that one should actually nurture while thinking about GCCs as an employer?
Yeah. So I think first for me is your core academics, right? That's kind of a given. See, what we look in the GCC space, Sudhakar Garu, is not like fundamentally different skills, etc. What I'm going to talk about actually are the soft skills or the behavioral aspects, because the rest of it is core academics, core technology, whichever field you are in that we're talking about. What we really look for is the attributes that I spoke about, right? People who are flexible, people who are agile, who are kind of adaptable, because these are an absolute requirement now, right? And people who are able to, like I said, question, challenge, right? So those I think are important traits that we are definitely looking at. And again, going back to the cricketing example, I mean, Rohit used to play all three formats, Test and ODI to T20, and how do you adapt your batting style? Well, it's a different thing. Rohit thinks even Test match is like one day, but how do you kind of adapt your batting styles based on the situation? So for the GCCs today, we are looking at people who are proactive, who are able to raise their hand and say, I'll pick it up, I'll do that. Who are kind of volunteering rather than voluntold. Right. So that is what we are looking at. Somebody who's also practical and who's realistic. We shouldn't expect that every year I will have promotions. No, if everybody gets a promotion, then all of us can't end up becoming the CEO of an organization, right? So please be realistic about your expectations, be ambitious, right? But be realistic as well. And in your mindset as well, and this is what my career has taught me, is growth is always, most of the times, lateral, right? Zigzag is the best way to grow, because the capabilities, the skills, that you build, I think is phenomenal when you kind of do zigzag. So like I said, be ambitious, be realistic, be very open, and be very, very agile, and stay relevant. Right? Please understand what's happening in the world outside, being relevant around technology, how technology can kind of change lives, to what is happening, like I said, in the geopolitical situation. So please continue to stay relevant.
Continue to stay relevant and continue to be open. I think it cannot get clearer than this, ma'am. Thank you so much. Now we'll see how many of them are ready to raise hands. One of them
Yes.
has already done.
Yes.
I'll request Professor Mahendareddy sir to ask the over to you, sir.
Mamatha, congratulations for an excellent presentation. I enjoyed every minute of your presentation. I also congratulate Sudhakar Rao and Prasad for such an excellent speaker they have got. It's a great thing, not only for Hyderabad, not only for our business school here in ICFAI, but to almost the entire business school in the world. I think my Professor Sudhakar Rao has already asked part of my question, but I like to say, what type of collaboration? See, this is in the minds of many business schools. You see, how our students can get absorbed in GCCs. What is it that we should do? For example, whatever you have mentioned, storytelling, industry collaboration. We have got so many schemes for internships, for projects in every course. There are about 30, 35 courses that the students take. Almost in every course, they have to take up a project, or go to the field, and then get that industry experience. So in terms of practicality, what is it that we should do even in the business school here in Hyderabad, in ICFAI Business School, to for our students to get placed? There is this micro-credential courses. You see, you have mentioned about the soft skills, greater emphasis in soft skills, because you mentioned that everybody is okay so far as the domain knowledge is concerned, so far as the techniques are concerned. But should the focus be on soft skills, or should the focus be on some micro-credential courses we are coming up? And the second point is, do you take just MBA students? Because the description you gave, some of the PhD students also may fit in well into the GCC when there are challenging questions. ESI, which you have mentioned about. So you can respond. Yeah, thank you, madam.
So I think the industry academia collaboration has started, Mahendra Garu, but I think there is a long way for us to go to really institutionalize it. I mentioned this, right? There are certain organizations we work with academia directly. BFSI consortium is kind of trying to do this. It has to be a concerted effort across kind of the industry for us to see how do we, like I said, right, institutionalize this. In terms of internships and all of that, the BFSI consortium model that I spoke about, actually, I think I missed mentioning it. It also has internship as part of the model. We are, I mean, as NASSCOM, again, wearing my NASSCOM GCC chair hat, we are very, very keen to replicate this model across the country, but across other sectors as well. Hyderabad specifically, pharma is huge, right? So what is it that pharma needs as domain knowledge? What is it that pharma needs as technology, right? When we talk technology, then it's engineering, right? Can we introduce those specific subjects into engineering and non-engineering when we talk about domain and behavioral capability? So there is tremendous opportunity, I think, for us to collectively as an ecosystem work on it. I think the size of the opportunity is enormous. The size of the opportunity is just for us to define how much we want to do it. So we are, as a consortium, we are having a lot of conversations. I mean, we also met, Sudhakar Garu recently. But I think those baby steps, in my view, are very, very important for us to kind of take it forward. Because this is not something we'll solve for overnight, right? It's a journey, but our endeavor as a GCC industry is how do we accelerate and shorten that journey? So partnership, I think, is very, very important that we talk about between the industry and academia. Like I mentioned, I think for us as an industry, it's very heartening to see how open and welcome, the universities and the colleges are to really, work with us. But more to do in this space.
What about PhDs being taken up and the GCCs? Because the points you have mentioned are some challenges are there. McDonald's opening up in India. See, what will they do research work to help the main company, which is maybe in the United States? The large companies maybe in the US. So is research has a role to play there in the GCC?
Yes, some do. We don't do a lot of research in the GCC space, but again, in the ER&D space, there's a lot of research work, that happens. But would they hire, etc.? That model, I am not very sure, but we can absolutely find that out.
Thank you, madam.
But
Great,
I'll take
ma'am.
that away and come back to you.
Yeah. Wonderful. Before anybody else raises hand, I have a small question, ma'am, and this is very interesting for me to, find out from a leader like you. What is one or two big challenges that you have faced while pushing the most important aspect of diversity, equity, inclusiveness? Because it's not easy, as we understand, even in smaller format organizations or any big format organization, it's even more challenging.
Yeah.
Probably you can pick up some of the lessons from your own journey and give us some lessons for us to actually take up in this DEI space.
So for me, the bigger challenge is actually the inclusion.
Okay.
I mean, we have metrics, right? I have a target. My gender diversity has to be at this percent. And right from hiring, which means the profiles that I get, we ask for a certain percentage of gender diversity. When they move into round one of interview, a certain percentage of gender diversity. So our panel has to be diverse, right? So there are certain very black and white, you can carve out as framework or guidelines. But for me, the bigger challenge is the inclusion, element. And how do we really create those policies, which will then can enable, the inclusion element is important. One simple example I'll give you. I think when I start to look at my gender diversity across grades, there is a particular level where my gender diversity drops. And that is at an age when, women is giving birth to a child, right? And those are the reasons, that we largely hear why people are dropping out, from their career. So we looked at our maternity policy. Our maternity policy says 6 months of maternity leave. But after that, we've also said 1 year after that, if the woman chooses to, she can continue to work from home. So basically, the mother is with the child until the child is 18 months old, right? So for us, it is about how do we create the right policies as well, remaining within the broader framework of the organization's policies, but how can the policies enable, gender diversity? We're talking gender here. I mean, I'm also talking about ability now. We talk about people with, disability. For me, the inclusion, the bigger challenge was actually there, right? When do hiring managers know, do the line managers know how to make, a person with disability feel inclusive? What are the things you definitely, cannot say? So we do a lot of sensitization sessions. We do workshops and all of that on the inclusion element. One of the things that we've rolled out is called as workplace adjustments, where we have said what could be the reasonable adjustments that we need to make at work from a physical infrastructure standpoint to ensure that a person with disability is comfortable. So there could be just a chair, right, better chair with a backrest, or even things like that. So we have to create, policies. We have to look at interventions that you can, make the environment far more inclusive. Easier said than done, because it's also a lot of cultural thing that we are grown up, from childhood. A lot of it is unknown as well. Like I said, with persons with disability, most of the line managers or teams sometimes are not sensitive to what can be said and what can't be said. So for us, it's more a cultural thing as we've been brought up. So how do we, kind of create those, the workshops, the awareness sessions, etc. And it's a process, and it's a journey. So it's both from a physical infra standpoint to it's actually three: physical infra to policies to actually the entire cultural element.
Amazing. One is at the policy level, other one is at, adjustment level in terms of physical infrastructure and also cultural aspects. The more we understand about the diversity is a reality now. We can't escape from that. But inclusiveness is in your hands. I think, although it is very difficult, it is the decision that one takes with respect to the observation of diversity, or the observation of, or the commitment to equity results in inclusiveness and the steps that we take. That's very good, ma'am. There's one related small point is we would like to also learn from your journey what kind of allyship fostering that you did, because that's also a very important aspect in large teams that you have handled over several years in your sector, and your own observations in other sectors as well. We could take up one or two.
So as an organization, allyship is big for us. I mean, and if I pick up LGBTQ, right? And I probably missed that when I spoke about inclusion, but maybe I'll kind of talk about it. And we are very visible as an organization, which is an inclusive organization, right? But again, that it's a cultural thing. So when we talk pride, June is a pride month, right? How do we demonstrate during that specific month that people sign up for being kind of an ally? We do something called a pride walk, right? Because we want to show as an organization, like I said, we are inclusive, but this is where individuals also sign up. It is also a lack of awareness that we see in most of the cases. Like pride walk is we carry a huge pride flag and walk on the road, right? It's like walk on the road to kind of demonstrate, as an organization, how we are kind of strong allies. So it is like I said, it's about the policies, it is about optics, it's all about how we want to create, that culture. It's not that everybody says, oh, hey, I want to be an ally. There'll be some who will be very uncomfortable, right, with it, right? But it is also about respecting, that decision if somebody is not comfortable, but also to articulate very clearly what we stand for as an organization. So we are very clear on what our values are as an organization.
Amazing, ma'am. Without being very clear on the values as an organization, it is difficult to create that purpose and the purpose of belongingness with large teams like the way you are handling. Amazing lesson for us. At this stage, we are at 5:13 and we have borrowed 13 minutes more than what I have originally asked for. So you'll have to excuse me for doing that, but there's no way I could have stopped 30 minutes shorter. So fantastic conversation, ma'am. I must thank you. And I'll give you one analogy. Those people from Hyderabad and Telangana would understand that, in a couple of decades back, Chiranjeevi's movie begins, and then all of them are seated. It is a blockbuster movie, houseful, but people enter even after 5-6 minutes. So they not only enter after 5-6 minutes or 10 minutes, but soon after entering, they'll ask the guy sitting next to them in the theater, what has happened already? So I see a lot of people entering a little late as well, but I think they did not miss much. The entire story has been like a concentric circle. You have repeated a lot of important points, and the presentation slides were quite directional, and it has told us about the vast canvas that we are dealing with as part of GCCs. Very interesting session and several takeaways that we have. One and the most important takeaway that is very relevant for us is we have so many campuses in India. ICFAI and all the academic leaders from ICFAI have joined today. It directionally points to one important appetite, is that the collaboration mindset is very strongly there, and they wanted to listen to you today, and all of them have joined. We care for the students who are studying with us and for their careers. And in order to map some kind of a game plan or a roadmap to be figured out, they listen to you today. And I'm very sure that we will definitely come back to you with requests of inviting you to some of our campuses at least. We have a very large business school in Hyderabad, ICFAI Tech in Hyderabad, ICFAI Law School in Hyderabad. From here to in Mumbai, we have our ICFAI Business School, which is a large entity. Similarly, in Gurgaon and Bangalore, Pune, Ahmedabad, Kolkata, Gurgaon. I'll keep on naming these things because we have a large set of campuses, not just in metros, but even in unmetros we have. We have in places like Jharkhand, which is a very good place, and we have realized that we are able to attract good talent pool there who are quite ambitious. Some of the factors that you mentioned, they're quite ambitious. They're culturally quite synced. They will be very good leaders with the stable mindset and open mindset. They are very, very ambitious. They want to grow. So we will get good talent pool across all our campuses, ma'am. And therefore, much before even talking about talent pool, we would request you to actually visit some of the campuses, wherever it's possible. Sometimes when you travel, sometimes when you are in Hyderabad, depending on convenience, we will come back to you for a request to physically, visit and talk to them wherever possible. I say this not just from the opportunity of the talent recruitment that's lying ahead of us, but also for the fact that you are an epitome and a symbol of good leadership. I'm saying this across the screen. You're a very cool leader. Let me very honestly tell you. I've been talking to you for several times, and I met you several times. Every time I observe you, you have come across as a nice standard, a good benchmark of a leadership, cool and composed, and there's a lot to learn from you. I'm sure the rub-off effect will be there when you visit our campuses, stand there and talk to some of our students. Please don't deny our students that great opportunity to learn from you, that rub-off effect, that personality that rubs off on others. I think you should be open to that, ma'am.
Thank you. It will be my privilege, and I'm sure I will learn a lot as well, Sudhakar Garu, from the students. So yeah, anytime where we are able to, it'll be, like I said, my privilege and pleasure to visit.
Amazing, ma'am. I'll also make one more request to share that PPT. Maybe Gayatri is still there. She can take your permission and share that.
Yeah.
We'll make a summary. Dr. Ved Purishwar helps us in writing the summary, which we will share with you. And once you clear that, we'll upload it on our website. Those people who have missed out, those large number of people who have joined is good, but there are some who have missed out. In case they want to go back and learn, apart from listening to your video, they will have a text summary nicely encapsulated. So this PPT will be helping us to stay the course and also capture all the points along with the video, that we can give this as a benefit to our people. This is session number 195. We are very soon going to touch session number 200, but we'll stay in touch with you, ma'am. We'll keep learning from you, and we'll also work for that collaboration. Very nicely you conveyed 1 + 1 = 3. We have always been working in silos. A lot of academic institutions work in silos. But when we come together, I think we co-create something much stronger than what we individually were. So that's a great principle. And some of the leadership aspects that you have talked about today are fantastic in terms of the culture setting, culture templating for people, and moving from doers community to learners community to thinkers community to owners community, if you will. It is more like becoming intrapreneurs, if not entrepreneurs. I think that kind of mindset is what is called for. That kind of mindset is what is in demand. And I think we need to make that shift and make the most of it. We need to actually derive this opportunity of becoming transformational GCCs, and therefore great opportunities for all of us, not just those people who are in the campuses, but those who are already in the industry. All of us will stand to gain when we change this mindset and gear up for taking advantage of this opportunity. Thank you so much, ma'am, for creating this wonderful, interesting conversation for all of us this evening. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations as you move towards your 200th, I think, the webinar. It's a big milestone, and I think just the sheer ability to be able to get that many leaders, and I'm sure the students would have truly benefited from it. But thank you so much for inviting me. I think it's been a great session for me as well, personally, and I look forward to continue to be in touch.
Great, ma'am. Professor Prasad, any last word from you?
I think I'm very keen about that BFSI consortium, and perhaps we'll take the next step for that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So ma'am, again, the ball is in your court.
Yes, we will definitely come back on that.
Yeah,
But
I'll
no,
share
thank
that
you so
not-
much.
I'll share that not just with the Hyderabad campus, but with the entire community of ICFAI learners all across the country. And all of us will be equally interested in participating in that collaboration. That will be a very big move from our side, helped by you, initiated by you. It is fantastic, ma'am. So thank you once again. Have a
Thank you.
great evening
Thank
and
you so
great
much.
weekend.
Have a great
So
evening.
ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you on 30th of May with another leader. We are going to talk about the social work this time. And this is about why we need to create gender equity and why it is going to be a fight for all of us. So that's going to be the topic next week on 30th of May. We are going to have the CEO of Milan Foundation talking to us from the US, and that's at 6:30 p.m. on 30th of May. Till then, Keep browsing and learning about GCCs. Go and visit what Mamatha madam is doing. Look at her pictures, look at her videos. She has spoken on various consortiums, and there's a lot for us to learn from each of those sessions that she has handled in industry-focused activities and events, and then come back next week. Till then, have a great weekend and good night. Thank you.